Welcome to Two Guys.
Hey, Gil.
and an MBA. It's funny. I was also speaking of border control. He's floating this idea, which is interesting for me, is that he wants to give green cards. He just started this in December
Okay.
to international students studying in America who graduate. So, like my
Okay.
daughter, Canadian,
Yeah.
if he pushes this, so what he's looking for is not, he's looking for a type of quality of immigration. I'm not defending how he's doing it. I'm
Mm.
not saying that. Canada has the same policy. We only take certain types of people as immigrants. We have a very, I think, strict immigration policy. Uh,
Yeah.
so, but anyway, his approval ratings are very positive, and they continue to seem that way. So,
Yeah. The immigration issue is interesting. I think we mentioned a few weeks back, there's an article, if you push all of the people that are building the homes out, uh, they also have to pay rent. So like you're pushing out you're pushing the supply down because they're building slower, but you're also pushing the demand down at the same time, and it's very unpredictable how that will work economically in the future. Like which force will win out. It's very unstable. There's too many variables going on there, and uh, I hope that it's all pomp. I hope it's all just blustery, whatever. He's talking about 15 million people, ejecting them. I like that idea. I didn't hear that about the green card thing.
yeah.
I think, interestingly, I was actually recently looking at the qualifications to live in Canada because I was like, okay, what if I wanted to move with my family to Canada? And there's a whole list of careers of jobs of job roles that it has to be like accountant, engineer,
Absolutely.
doctor.
Yep.
Similar in America, that they don't want menial
Yeah.
labor. But on the other hand, who's going to pick all the fruit in California that feeds most of the country if
Yeah.
all those people leave? Who's going to build the homes? Who's going to, all those blue collar jobs? Um, you
You mean
know,
these are illegal immigrants who are doing this? That's in America, you're saying.
uh,
That's yeah.
largely a lot of illegal immigrants do the fruit picking and the agricultural labor for wages below which Americans won't do. A lot of these people are doing jobs Americans won't do. Did you see the Dave Chappelle monologue on SNL? It was pretty good, and he
Oh,
even
this weekend.
got,
No, I gotta check it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
he got political at the end about, he said, whether you're in the Palisades or in Palestine, and he got political with it. Yeah. But he
I love it.
mentioned the story about the Haitian immigrants in Ohio because he lives in Ohio, and Trump said that they were eating dogs and whatever, and he
It's a
pointed
good
out,
song. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he pointed out something that I felt was pretty astute for a comedian, though. It was, he said, these immigrant communities, they do pretty well because when you bring a boatload of people into America out of poverty, they don't take it for granted. The immigrant communities in America tend to do well when you bring them in because they're hardworking, because they don't want to go back to that condition, and they see opportunity all around them. They see the infrastructure, they see the jobs, they see all the other people living in affluence relative to where they came from. We always talk about Tony Robbins. He says, if you live in America or Canada or any of these industrialized nations, you're already like the poor. If you're the poorest person, in absolute terms, not relative, is better off than like 80 or 90% of the rest of the world. And I've
Yeah.
seen this firsthand. I've been to India, I've been to Philippines, I've been to Romania, I've been, you know what I mean? I've seen real poverty.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you bring up that argument because I'd argue with other people about the poor in Canada, and I'm always like, who are you talking about? I mean, especially Canada, we've got
Yeah,
massive amounts of social programs here. And if you're comparing it to like India or Africa where they don't have running water, I mean, you could just
yeah,
how do you start to relate to the concept of poor when you live in a wealthy country that actually allocates to help, this.
yeah,
Now, I'm not saying it's comfortable.
yeah.
I'm not saying that. It's
Or fair.
uncomfortable.
It's not
It's
fair.
not fair. I mean, but
Yeah,
so is running a business is not fair.
yeah,
The other thing you talk about, which I think no one ever actually slows down because it's too obvious, right? Is legal immigration and immigrants very effective. We're having discussions about illegal immigration, illegal.
yeah,
And I mean, just by the term, it's illegal, right? So it's because it's not formed in law. We haven't made allocations for it. So, I was reading, I have a cleaning company. and I'm reading like Fortune magazine, and they're talking about the cleaning business, cleaning meat factories, and how this lady put her arm in a meat, well, she's cleaning it, and her arm got cut off, but she has no health insurance.
Oh.
And the reason she has no health insurance is that she's an illegal immigrant. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
how did it become acceptable to say we can use illegal, labor and just say it's part of our economic or business uh, model? It doesn't make sense to me. And you have people who are working illegally, have no protection, that have no medical,
Yeah.
that are put in jobs not because it doesn't pay much, or pays at the minimum wage. It pays below the minimum wage. All these things are counterintuitive to like what's fair. Like you've got to make it fair not only for the country, but what about these people? That's just exploitation, right? In
Yeah.
Canada, I know we have visas for people from like Jamaica to come up and pick fruit, or
Mm.
people from other countries. There's a visa, and it's a process. You come in, you got a visa, you work for that time period, you do service to your country, our country, and then you go back home. That's how it works, right? So I don't understand why we keep arguing about illegal versus legal. They're two different things, right? And I think
There's
that's what Donald Trump is trying to like delineate, but it's not working very well.
there's fruit in Canada. I wasn't aware of this. I thought it was
Yes.
all tundra. Right.
Well,
Uh,
we got Justin Trudeau. So
in what oh God, in what you said there was it was interesting. I see the double standard that you
yeah,
pointed out there, that we want to focus on the perpetrators, the illegal immigrants, but you have to also find the employers culpable, because
absolutely.
and everyone knows this is going on, in
Yes.
the meat packing factories, in the
Oh, horrible.
farms, and wherever, you know that employers are taking advantage of this. And I think, I'm not sure I want to like point the finger at the employers though, because they're just doing what you would normally do in capitalism, which is look for a competitive advantage, which is in an industry like fruit, or these, these tend to be more competitive because the margins are so low. Um, any advantage you can get, like squeezing your labor costs. You mentioned your cleaning company, a similar thing. Uh, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience with Apple, but
Yeah,
getting the
sure. Yeah,
cost as low as
I will.
possible.
Right.
Even if that means factoring in, well, if we do something illegal, well, what's the risk that we're going to get caught? Well, if we get caught, what's going to happen? We're going to pay a fine. Well, what's the profit margin you know, um, if we take the illegal labor and we do get fined? Okay, let's take the risk. And a lot of companies, I think, are just calculating that, and that the incentive is there. I think it's a structural issue. We need to create stronger incentives not to do these kind of things when we don't want them to happen.
Right.
Jail time, revocation of licensure. You can go on, just more stringent punishments. Then
Yeah,
no one will do it.
it's funny. The company in question, I think, was a 3 point something billion dollar, something like that, $300 million cleaning company. I mean, it's astonishing. And their business model is to shirk the law, pay the fine, and just put people in positions where it's illegal and they're at risk. And we talked about this concept called market failure, when something in economics factors
Yeah.
creates this market failure, right? Uh, it should happen. I mean,
Yeah.
if everybody's playing by the same standards and your economics are based on competing with somebody else, and that other person's using illegal labor, because I face that all the time. I in
Yeah.
my company, there's people who are using not technically illegal labor, but they're leaning on their visa. So they come here to Canada, they have a
Mm.
visa to work in a company. Them staying in the country is predicated on them working for this company, doing this, and they
Yeah.
get exploited, right? So rather than pay them minimum wage, or you get them to extra work. I mean, that makes it tough for me to compete. It doesn't allow for competition, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like that either, right? I want to play by the rules, which I do.
Yeah. Yeah. It undermines the entire idea of the, economic competition, fair competition. It reminds me of, when you're in school days, and, you studied really hard for the test, and you came with your, answers ready, and you aced it. And then you look over and, this happened to me. Some guy pulls the essay out of his shirt, and it's like, well,
Like, right. Oh,
it's
in our class, we'd write our essays, right? And it was at the time when ChatGPT was being used, but not really, right? And I was shocked, right? I remember being in a team with somebody, to be not named, And the quality of this person's work, I mean, wasn't good, right? And then as we're moving through the mod, I read a paper and I'm like, holy moly, that is really good, right? And I mentioned to one of my teammates, I go, wow, that was like I didn't think this person, I won't say genders either, could write. And he goes, oh no, using ChatGPT. And I'm like, what? And it just, and then we were told not to use it at the beginning. At the
Yeah.
end, we're told to use it. It happens so
Yeah.
fast. And that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. It's right. It's an unfair advantage. If it's, are you going to use it? Because there's no way, how can you compete, right? So fairness is important. Competition is really important. Everybody playing on the level playing field, I think, is important. So
Please consider subscribing below.
Thank you for being with us. Please leave your comments, feedback, what you think about us, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.